I'll apologies, I can't be with you in person today. My son is just a few days old and everyone's still recovering a little bit, but I'm very excited to talk to you today about data teams and this concept of being bankrupt. I'm a massive nerd. I really love this sort of thing. So please do get in contact. Happy to chat about anything, discuss ideas, grab a coffee, you name it. The Most of this talk is focused on tips for interviewing at companies, but I would encourage people to think about it in terms of companies they've already worked at, their current teams, and see if the principles hold. I think it'll help evaluate where you want to go and if the team is going to be successful. First of all, just a little bit about who I am. So despite the baby face, I'm actually pretty old and have done quite a bunch of stuff. So I started off in economics, had zero imagination, went into management consulting, but then have done data science, ML stuff at startups, big techs, back to startups, and now smaller tech at Bumble, but still lots of users. Um, as it's a career festival, I think some words of wisdom, hopefully, that I might have is early in your career, say yes to as much as possible, go deep, but really focus on exploration. Uh, that doesn't just mean moving around, that's within companies. I think staying at a company is overrated. Life is long. And then as you develop your career, move into that world of exploitation, but never give up that sense of exploration. Cool. So, what is the point of a data team? Like, why are we here? I am allergic to the word insights. It sort of lost all meaning. What we really do is produce credibility to make decisions. So leaders, other folks within the business, they should be using us, our credibility, the trust we provide to make decisions. Okay, so what does that all mean bringing it together? It's our why is make decisions at higher velocity, better decisions. The what, I think 95% of the work we do can be classified into either creating a compass, so a constant cycle through the OODA loop, a learning cycle of are we on the right track? And then a scoreboard, which is what is our direction of travel? What can we work backwards from? How do we achieve the big things the company wants? How do we bring visions and big objectives to life? We need to know what the inputs and the outputs are and how they link. Bill Walsh was a great NFL coach, and he has this book called The Score Takes Care of Itself. And that I think is our job, is making sure we can focus on the right inputs as a company to produce the outputs we want. And then the how is all the great things we know and love as data nerds. It's experimentation, it's causal inference, it's data products, metric trees, applied statistics, whether it's classification models or regression, even, the world of deep learning. Your job in the interview is to demonstrate you understand these how elements. You're looking for, does the company understand and do the why and the what? One really simple heuristic you can look at is the type of questions you're being asked. What questions? What happened? That's BI, that's reporting. That if you've got a really good data platform, analytics engineering team, these questions are super straightforward, fully automatable. The why, again, semantic layers, metric trees being able to decompose problems, throwing data into LLMs. Just why did this thing happen? Why did it move? What's it linked to? That again is really simple stuff. And it all looks backwards. Where you're starting to transition and where you are doing good work is, are you answering how questions? How do we achieve X? Again, compass and scoreboard, like you want to be building out those things that say, how do we get people to come back more frequently? And you're reducing uncertainty in the decisions we make on those bets we're going to make. So bring that back to this concept of bankruptcy, and really it's all comes down to trust, and trust is the capital of us as data teams. And then decisions is how we spend it, and we either get a good return on that or we don't. And yeah, not everything is is going to work out. Um, But trust is really a function of three things. So technical competence, I put in here the basics. So that is good data quality, data governance, but then also your ability to do statistical work. Causal inference, for example, it's a very complex topic. It's easy to make some big assumptions that do not translate to the real world. So that is your bread and butter. Business translation is then, are we working on the right things? So if someone says, if you just take whatever question you're asked, everyone is here just trying to do a good job. PMs, marketers, sales folks, doesn't matter who they are, they might just brag about getting uplifts or working, putting effort into one area, which doesn't actually matter. So making sure we're finding the right points of leverage and we're doing the most important things is really key. And then relationship quality. Everyone should read this book by Robert Cialdini. There is a new version out with an updated principle. So even if you read it a while ago, give it a reread. There's another book called The Trusted Advisor. But you, the point is to say you cannot sit in a room in an ivory tower reading papers. You need to be out there actually applying this and working with teams. It's also really useful for you as data leaders because every piece of work we do is either adding to trust or detracting from it. And there'll be times where you need to do work that might feel quite menial, but what you're really doing is you're unblocking a leader to make a decision that builds trust. You can then invest that later, whether it's going and doing a bigger project, taking more time to do something. You need to play the game of like building and accruing this capital. And you, when interviewing companies, want to get a sense of how much trust do people outside the data team have in this team? How much frustration does the data team itself feel with we're constantly being second guessed? Well, maybe they don't trust you, and you need to focus on building up that trust first. So there's a few analogies in here, but I think that when you get that return, when you do go and take big bets, small bets, decision is made, you unblock something, just every little thing chips away and it can compound pretty quickly. So always think about that. Okay, a lot about the analogy. How do I actually assess that during the interview when I'm talking to a company? First of all, a couple of red flags I think it's important to look out for. There's this concept of word data driven. It doesn't mean anything. What I think we've all seen is a lot of companies operate in two frames. One is just tell me what to do. That's not data driven. Or tell me what I want to hear. The answer to either of those problems are management consultants. Trust me, I know. Uh, what you actually want for a data team is people using data to form an opinion, to have an understanding about the business, and then apply that. So, what we're really looking for is entropy, right? Like a time where people have changed their mind because of the data. You have an opinion. Really, that should come up in the experimentation practice. You start with a default action because you have a hypothesis. You understand the business through the data, what you've looked at yourself or working with a data scientist, and then you get the results and you either say, oh, that's what I expected or it wasn't. But that's where it will really come through most. So go deep on the experimentation practice or just where people are changing their mind. Uh, yes, these are quote unquote insights. When you speak to the data team, often data teams talk about tooling and the modern data stack, maybe a thing of the past. I think that's someone else to talk about. But we became very obsessed with our tools. And if you speak to the data team and all they talk about is new cool tools they've used or techniques they're trying, and if that's all you want to care about, you're going to have a bad time. What you want is when you ask the question, what are you most proud of? They should be talking about the influence they've had, impact, business things they actually changed, impact they drove. I think that is the most important thing you want to see. And then some shortcuts for things that are likely to be a good sign. Some of these are a little bit crude. The first is asking, what is the role of the data team? these are some good answers. One is the next vector of growth. So as companies mature, often they'll just build things based on one-to-one feedback with customers, speaking to customers from market research. Everything is external. But then data is not some sort of cold, hard thing. It is the best voice of our customer. And if they're saying we need to make sense of what our customers want, we need to understand them better. We need to look at things on a longer term horizon. That's where you're going to have a really good time. Another is, oh, we want the team to be more strategic. It's not a great answer, but it means they're probably doing those what and why questions really, really well. They just need someone to up it to the how. How do we look forward? And then normally you're going to be able to bring some pretty sophisticated techniques that allow them to look forward to remove uncertainty. Great examples of this are companies that get stuck on LTV to CAC ratios. They don't really know how to get looking out on a longer term horizon. Um, and that's where you can have like a massive impact. Then the third is any insights around the team being highly collaborative, particularly with my favorite team in finance, FP&A. So ask about the planning process, forecasting, budgets, how those things are set. If there is a really good relationship with the FP&A team, it means you have a data team that are one, involved with some pretty like important things, but then also all that work is translating to actual business impact. Because believe you me, FP&A might not love talking about confidence intervals and ranges of uncertainty, but they know the business and what drives the business really, really clearly. Leaders have they have elbows. So there's a great post called Elbows of Data, which I encourage everyone to read. Included a short quote here, but most of the time we are not the ones owning a decision, right? We've talked about that. Um, you're going to do your work through others, through influence, and so not everyone is going to always ask you. They're not always going to care, but you need really strong data leaders that don't want to sit in the basement. So sometimes this might actually come through, a chief growth officer or product officers. They can actually be your advocates for ways in. We don't have chief analytical or data science officers, so you need to find your way in to the people that are really going to champion you. So a good question to ask is when did you stop something shipping? The default was always ship the thing. And this can be a really, really painful process to go through. Believe me, I've done a few of them. But again, the credibility and the trust you build by saying, we can't ship this, we have, and then you provide an alternative, and that then goes well. Again, it just comes back to trust. This one is, again, a little bit more crude, but founder-led companies. So founders themselves are willing to take bold bets. They might have a great intuition for the business. They themselves might not be data driven or influenced just by seeking the numbers themselves. However, they will work with leaders in the company who are willing to do some quite big things. And they are looking for those leaders to say, okay, what do I do next? Those leaders then work through you. They're able to build up a story, build their social capital to take some quite bold bets into the future. And that, for me, I've always found to be the best place. Working for founder-led companies where if you can build a good narrative, you can help show the uncertainty, you can show there's this totally new hill that we could maximize, that we could climb up to. They're always willing to reach for it. And I think the ability for data to have an impact there is great. You're not going to do this directly. So again, more reading homework. There's a concept called obliquity by John Kay. Say your impact is often going to be through not even adjacent, but kind of second order effects and different ways of thinking is really, really powerful. That's all from me. Some shortcuts, some things to look out for, but generally, really try and assess the trust in the team at the company you're joining. Look forward to chatting. Hope you have a great day. Thanks, everyone.